The train station was a study in stillness, its usual rhythm interrupted by an unexpected delay. A signal malfunction, the overhead announcement had said. Trains were at a standstill, and the crowd, typically in motion, now pooled around the station's edges, stranded, waiting. Alex stood near a coffee kiosk, his hands buried in his coat pockets. His eyes drifted over the departure board, its glowing numbers frozen in place. He shifted his stance, but couldn't shake the weight of missed time. He had somewhere to be, but fate, or something like it, had decided otherwise. Beside him, Jordan waited, tapping his foot against the stone floor. His fingers drummed against his suitcase handle, a silent rhythm keeping him grounded in the suspension of time. His gaze met Alex's, and for a fleeting moment, something passed between them. An odd sense of recognition, though they've never met before. "We're not going anywhere, are we?" Jordan said, his voice carrying an edge of humor, perhaps to soften the frustration. Alex glanced sideways and chuckled lightly. "Looks like it." He paused, the small talk uncomfortable, but something about Jordan's casual approach felt disarming. "Where are you headed?" "North," Jordan replied with a shrug. "Just trying to make it home before the weekend." "You?" "Same, a meeting. Business, I guess." Alex shifted his weight again, his unease now shifting to a vague curiosity about the stranger beside him. The conversation was casual enough, but something about it felt oddly fated, as if they were meant to speak. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Funny coincidence. Business meeting up north myself." He gave a slight smile, one that wasn't quite genuine. "Delayed here before?" Alex shook his head. "Not like this. You?" Jordan chuckled, but the sound lacked warmth. "No. Usually I'm the one running late. Life doesn't wait for anyone though, right?" There it was again, that flicker of recognition. Something unsettling stirred beneath the surface of their small talk, like a thread waiting to be pulled. Alex frowned, brushing off the feeling. Yeah, that's true. The station around them felt emptier now, as if the pause in motion had seeped into the very air. Their conversation drifted into an awkward silence, but neither seemed willing to walk away. The hum of the station's usual clatter and announcements faded further into the background, leaving them in a strange cocoon of silence. Jordan cleared his throat, breaking the quiet. "Funny how things work out, huh? Two strangers, same destination. What are the odds?" Alex gave a slight nod, though something about Jordan's words made him uneasy. "Yeah, weird." The quiet stretched between them again, punctuated by the occasional rustle of newspapers and distant coughs from other stranded passengers. Alex found himself glancing at Jordan more than he intended. There was something about the way he spoke, his mannerisms, almost like looking in a mirror that reflected not just appearance, but manner. The familiarity gnawed at him, subtle but persistent. "So," Jordan began, breaking the silence once more, "if you don't mind me asking, where's home for you? You mentioned business, but you don't seem like the local type." Alex shrugged, his eyes still half focused on the frozen departure board. "Grew up in a small town, but now I'm in the city, moved out after college. You?" Jordan's smile was tight, like he'd heard this story before. "Same here. Small town, moved to the city right after graduation. Something about needing to get out of there, you know?" Alex raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "Yeah, I know the feeling." Jordan's eyes twinkled with a strange amusement. "Bet your hometown had that one diner everyone loved too, right? That one place where you knew everyone's name?" Alex turned toward him fully now, the hairs on the back of his neck pricking up. "You're kidding, right? There was a place just like that. Benny's. Been there since forever." Jordan laughed. There was an edge to it, a tension beneath the surface. "Benny's, huh? Ours was named Ricky's. Weird." They both chuckled, but the mood had shifted. It was no longer idle conversation, but something sharper, something they couldn't quite put their finger on. "Let me guess," Alex said slowly. "High school sweetheart, right? Dated through most of school, thought it would last forever, but then life happened." Jordan's smile faltered. "Yeah, same. Her name was Caitlin." Alex blinked, the name striking an odd chord. "Caitlin? That's strange. My girlfriend back then was Katie." Jordan's eyes narrowed, his amusement giving way to a more guarded expression. "That's close. Too close." They stood in silence for a beat, the casual conversation of before now tinged with something more unnerving. Their eyes met again, and this time neither looked away. "Okay," Jordan said slowly. "This is getting weird. Let's try something else. A favorite subject in school." Alex paused, unsure whether to indulge this strange game, but unable to resist. "History. You?" Jordan smirked. "Same." Alex crossed his arms. "All right, that's enough. What's going on here? You're telling me we both have the same kind of past, down to the high school sweetheart and the diner?" Jordan's smirk faded as he took a step closer, his voice lowering. "I don't know, man, but something's off, and I'm starting to think it's more than just coincidence." A chill crept over Alex, though he couldn't explain why. He glanced around the station. The other passengers had blurred into the background, their faces indistinct. For a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the place. "Maybe it's just," Alex started, but Jordan cut him off. "No, it's not just anything. Think about it. Same hometown, same choices, same memories almost. There's no way this is random." Alex swallowed, suddenly aware of the surrealness of the situation. His mind raced, trying to piece together an explanation, but nothing made sense. He felt as if he had walked into a dream, one that was teetering on the edge of a nightmare. Before he could respond, the overhead lights flickered. The announcement system crackled, then fell silent again, as if even the station itself was succumbing to whatever strange force had woven its way into their conversation. Jordan leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "Tell me something. Do you ever feel like your life took a wrong turn somewhere?" Alex stiffened. The question hit too close to home, a thought he'd buried deep under the busyness of life. His jaw tightened, but before he could answer, he saw it. Something in Jordan's eyes, a reflection of his own doubts, his own regrets. This wasn't just small talk anymore. The overhead lights flickered again, casting the train station in a brief, ghostly glow. Alex shifted uncomfortably, the weight of Jordan's questions still hanging in the air between them. The easy banter of before had vanished, replaced by a creeping tension. Jordan's question echoed in Alex's mind. "Do you ever feel like your life took a wrong turn?" It wasn't the kind of question strangers asked, not at a train station, not under any normal circumstances. Alex swallowed hard and glanced around. The other passengers seemed distant, almost unreal, as if they were fading into the background. Something was wrong. His instinct screamed at him to walk away, but he couldn't. Not yet. Jordan's voice broke through the silence again, lower now, as if he was voicing a forbidden truth. "You have felt it, haven't you? That moment like you were supposed to be somewhere else, doing something else, but you took the wrong path." Alex clenched his fists in his pockets, his pulse quickening. The truth was, he had felt that way, more times than he cared to admit. There were moments in his life where he'd wondered if he'd made a choice that had set everything off course. Career, relationships, even where he lived. It all felt like a series of missteps, but he'd buried those feelings deep. "Everyone feels that way sometimes," Alex replied, his voice tight. "It's normal." Jordan smirked, though there was nothing friendly about it. "Is it?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. daring Alex to confront the growing unease gnawing at his mind. He shook his head, trying to shake the feeling off, but it clung to him. Jordan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Let me guess. There's a moment in your life, a decision you keep coming back to, something you can't forget, no matter how hard you try. Maybe it's a relationship that ended or a job offer you didn't take. Whatever it was, it's like a shadow over everything. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He did have a moment like that, one he tried not to think about. Years ago, when he'd been offered a promotion that would have taken him to a new city, a new life, he hadn't taken it, stayed behind for reasons he couldn't even remember clearly now. But that decision had haunted him ever since, as if his life had forked in two that very day, and he had taken the wrong path. How did you? Alex started, but Jordan cut him off, his voice harsh. Because I know, Alex, I have been there. I made that choice too. Or maybe you're the one who did. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. This was beyond coincidence now. It was like looking into a fractured reflection of his own life. His thoughts raced, trying to make sense of it, but nothing added up. Jordan took another step closer, his eyes locked on Alex's. You're wondering how I know, aren't you? How I know about your regrets, about the decisions you wish you could undo. That's because we're the same. We were both supposed to make that choice, but one of us didn't. Alex shook his head, backing away slightly, but the unease coiled tighter around him. What are you talking about? This is insane. Is it? Jordan's voice unnervingly calm now. Think about it, Alex. Same hometown, same memories, same regrets. What are the chances of that? Alex opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. His mind raced through the strange similarities, the diner, the high school sweetheart, the choices that mirrored his own life in ways that were too perfect to ignore. It was impossible, but he couldn't deny the sinking feeling in his gut. This wasn't just coincidence. Look around, Jordan said, his voice low and urgent. Doesn't something feel wrong? Something off about this place? Alex did look around. The station, once bustling with irritated passengers, had thinned out, as if the people around them had faded into mere shadows. The overhead announcements had gone silent, and the lights flickered again, casting long, distorted shadows across the floor. What's happening? Alex whispered, more to himself than to Jordan. This place, it's not real, Jordan said, his voice tight with intensity. At least not in the way you think. We're here because we were not supposed to be. This is the universe's way of correcting a mistake. Alex stared at Jordan, the world tilting beneath his feet. What mistake? Jordan's eyes bore into his. The one where there are two of us. Two people who should have been one. The station felt colder, more distant, as if it had slipped further from the real world with each passing moment. Alex felt the unease tighten around his chest. He had been on the edge of disbelief, on the verge of calling Jordan insane, but now he couldn't shake the feeling that this was all too real. The flickering lights, the thinning crowd. No, not even a crowd anymore. The other passengers had faded into shadow, barely noticeable in the peripheral vision. It was just him and Jordan now, standing in the hollow of an empty station, frozen in time. Jordan's words lingered in the air, sharp and undeniable. You know what it was, don't you? The decision, the moment that split everything. Alex's breath hitched. His mind flashed back to that day, years ago now, when the job offer had come. It had been a golden ticket, a chance to leave his stagnant life behind and start fresh in the city. He had stared at the offer letter for hours, weighing the risks, the unknowns, the fear of failure. In the end, he hadn't taken it. The memory still stung like a wound that never healed. Jordan stepped closer, his voice low, filled with a kind of grim understanding. You didn't take the offer, did you? Alex swallowed hard, the weight of the old decision crushing down on him. No, I didn't. The words came out flat, almost mechanical. How many times had he replayed that moment in his mind, wondered what could have been if he'd just taken the leap? He had convinced himself that life had worked out fine. Not perfect, but fine. But now, standing here face to face with the version of himself who had taken the offer, the truth clawed at him. Jordan nodded slowly, like he had expected this. I did. I took it, moved to the city, got out of that dead-end town, made something of myself. His words were filled with a hollow satisfaction, the kind that came from telling a story too many times. It wasn't easy. I took risks, I screwed up plenty of times, but I didn't look back. Alex's heart pounded, his chest tightening as the chasm between their two lives widened before his eyes. His voice trembled as he spoke. So that's it? That's what this is about? Because I didn't take the job, I'm what? The wrong version? Jordan's gaze hardened, his jaw set in a grim line. It's not about right or wrong, Alex. It's about the fact that only one of us was meant to live this life. The universe doesn't care about our regrets or our justifications. You didn't take the chance, I did. And now only one of us gets to continue. The words hit Alex like a physical blow. His head swam with the enormity of it. His life, every moment since that decision, was unraveling before his eyes. The regret he had buried so deeply was now laid bare, no longer just a quiet whisper in his mind, but a thunderous roar in his ears. The walls of the station felt as though they were closing in, the air thick with a sense of impending doom. You think you deserve this life more than I do? Alex's voice shook, his hands clenched into fists at his side. His heart raced as he stared at Jordan, at the man he might have been. Jordan's expression darkened, his tone cold and unforgiving. I didn't say that, but I know one thing. This isn't about what we deserve. It's about what is. The universe split us when it shouldn't have. Two paths, two lives, but only one was meant to exist. Alex's pulse pounded in his ears. His mind scrambled to process the magnitude of it all. How could this be real? How could a single choice, one decision made years ago, lead to this moment, standing on the precipice of existence, fighting for the right to live? And now, one of us has to disappear. Alex's voice was barely more than a whisper, the words slipping from his lips before he could even process them. Jordan's eyes were hard, unwavering. That's right. The universe wants to fix itself. It can't keep both of us. We're not supposed to exist at the same time. Alex took a step back, his mind reeling. This is insane. You can't just erase someone's life because of one decision. Jordan's lips twisted into a bitter smile. It's not just one decision, Alex. It's everything that came after. Your whole life, everything you've done, every relationship, every failure, it's all been a ripple from that one moment, that wrong path. And now the universe is correcting itself. Alex's anger flared, a hot surge of frustration bubbling up inside him. You think you're better than me? Just because you took a risk? Jordan's face remained impassive, but his voice was sharp. I didn't say that, but I didn't spend my life wishing I had done something different. I moved forward. You've been stuck, living with regret. Alex's jaw clenched, the accusation cutting deep. He had regretted that decision, more than he cared to admit, but that didn't mean his life was meaningless. He had built something too, hadn't he? Maybe it wasn't the grand life he had dreamed of, but it was his life. Maybe I did make the wrong choice, Alex admitted, his voice steady but strained. But that doesn't mean I don't deserve to exist. I've lived my life too. I've fought to get where I am just like you." Jordan's eyes flickered with something, maybe understanding, maybe contempt. "But only one of us can leave here, Alex. The universe is making that clear." The station seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, the air thick with tension. The lights flickered again, casting long, distorted shadows across the floor. It was as if time itself was slowing down, holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. Alex felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him, suffocating him. Only one of them could survive this. The thought clawed at his mind, sending a jolt of panic through him. His life, his very existence, was hanging by a thread. And standing before him was the version of himself who had taken the path he had always wondered about. Jordan took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, laced with cold determination. "So who's it gonna be, Alex? You or me?" Alex's breath caught in his throat, his heart hammering in his chest. He wasn't ready to give up. Not like this. He had lived his life, flawed as it was. He had struggled, made choices, some good, some bad, but they were his choices. He wasn't about to disappear without a fight. "You want me to just step aside?" Alex's voice was a mixture of disbelief and fury. "You want me to let go of everything I've built, my life, just because the universe says so?" Jordan's eyes narrowed, his voice cold as steel. "It's not about what I want. It's about survival. And I am not going to disappear." The space between them crackled with tension, the decision hanging in the air like a sword ready to drop. Alex's mind raced, his thoughts spiraling into 1,000 directions. The choice was clear. Either he fought for his right to exist, or he accepted his fate. But Alex wasn't ready to fade into nothingness. Not yet. Not without a fight. "I'm not going to disappear either," Alex said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. The train station felt alive now, thrumming with an invisible energy that hummed between Alex and Jordan, a palpable force that pressed them toward a decision neither wanted to make. The flickering lights continued to cast sharp, jagged shadows across the floor, stretching and warping with each moment that passed. The once vague forms of the other passengers had all but disappeared, leaving only Alex and Jordan, two versions of the same life, standing at the crossroads of existence. The air was thick, charged with tension, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to act. Jordan took another step closer, his presence oppressive, dominating the space between them. His voice was low, with a barely restrained fury. "You think you can fight this, Alex? You think you deserve to walk out of here?" Alex stood his ground, though his heart pounded furiously in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to get away from this twisted nightmare. But there was nowhere to go, no escape. The universe had trapped them in this impossible moment, and the only way out was through. "I'm not going to just disappear," Alex shot back, his voice trembling but firm. "I've lived my life too. Maybe I didn't take the same risks. Maybe I didn't go after what I should have, but that doesn't mean my life doesn't matter." Jordan's eyes flared with anger. "You're clinging to something that was never supposed to be. You weren't supposed to exist. I made the choice that led us here. You're living on borrowed time and you know it." Alex's hands ached from his clenched fists, the tension coiling tighter around him. "Who says you deserve this more than me? You're acting like you've got everything figured out, like you're better than me because you took a chance. But you don't know that. You don't know what I've been through, what I've built, what I've lost." Jordan scoffed, his lip curling in disdain. "I know you've been stuck in the past, living with regret. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You've spent your whole life wondering what could have been, and now that you're faced with it, you can't let go. But guess what? I moved forward. I lived without regret." Alex's chest tightened, the words cutting deep. He had lived with regret, spent years thinking about that one moment, that one choice, and how it had shaped everything that followed. But that didn't mean his life was any less valuable. "You don't get to decide that," Alex said, his voice rising. "You don't get to tell me my life doesn't matter just because it didn't go the way you think it should have." Jordan's face twisted with frustration, his eyes flashing with a dark, dangerous intensity. "You're missing the point. This isn't about who's right or wrong, it's about what the universe needs. There's only room for one of us, Alex. That's how it works." The flickering lights above them buzzed with an electrical charge, the air around them growing heavier, more suffocating. Alex could feel it, the universe closing in, demanding resolution, and the decision was barreling toward them like an unstoppable train. Jordan's voice, tight and hoarse with anger, his eyes narrowing as he stepped forward. "If you're not going to step aside, then we have a problem. Only one of us can walk out of here, and it's not going to be you." The words sent a shock of cold fear down Alex's spine. Jordan wasn't just angry, he was ready to fight for this, ready to do whatever it took to ensure his own survival. The realization hit Alex like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about words anymore. "You really think you can decide who gets to live?" Alex's voice was quiet, filled with disbelief. "What gives you the right to decide that?" Jordan's eyes glinted with something dark, something dangerous. "What gives you the right? The universe made this mistake, and now it's going to fix it. I'm not going to disappear for you. I've worked too hard. I've come too far to just fade away." Alex's heart raced, his mind spinning with the gravity of the situation. He could feel the pull of the universe, an invisible force pushing them toward the inevitable. His own survival hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of a knife, and Jordan, this version of himself that had taken a different path, was staring him down like an opponent in a fight neither could afford to lose. The tension between them snapped, the decision crashing down like a tidal wave. Jordan lunged. Alex barely had time to react, his body moving on instinct as he sidestepped Jordan's attack. The sudden burst of movement sent them both stumbling. The station around them seemed to warp and twist. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging through his veins as he regained his footing. Jordan turned, his face twisted with fury. "You're not going to win this, Alex." Alex's mind raced. This wasn't just about survival, it was about everything that had led them here. Every choice, every regret, every path they had taken. He couldn't let Jordan take everything from him, couldn't let the universe erase him like he had never existed. "I'm not disappearing," Alex shouted, his voice echoing through the empty station. Jordan lunged again, and this time Alex didn't step aside. He met the attack head on, their bodies colliding in a desperate struggle for control. Alex fought with everything he had, his mind filled with a single driving thought: "I won't disappear." The struggle felt endless, a brutal, exhausting fight that left both of them gasping for breath. Time seemed to lose meaning as they wrestled with each other, their lives hanging in the very balance. And then, in a moment of raw, desperate clarity, Alex saw his opening. With a final, determined push, he threw Jordan off balance, sending him stumbling backward. Jordan's eyes widened in shock as he fell, his body hitting the cold floor of the station with a dull thud. For a moment, everything was still, the oppressive silence pressing down on them both. Alex stood over Jordan, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his mind racing with the weight of what had just happened. Jordan lay on the ground, his face twisted in anger and disbelief. But he didn't move. He couldn't move. The fight was over. The station pulsed with an eerie stillness, the air around them heavy with the aftermath of their struggle. Alex stared down at Jordan, his chest heaving, his heart pounding in his ears. The universe had made its choice. Only one of them would leave. Jordan's voice was weak, barely more than a whisper. "You won." Alex's throat tightened, the weight of the words crashing down on him. He had survived. He had fought for his life and won, but at what cost? Jordan's body began to flicker, his form fading in and out like a glitch in reality. The universe was correcting itself, erasing the mistake, erasing him. Alex watched in stunned silence as Jordan's body slowly dissolved into nothingness, leaving only an empty space where he had been. The station, once filled with tension and energy, now felt eerily quiet, as if the universe had finally exhaled. The lights above flickered one last time before finally stabilizing. The world seemed to shift back into place, the shadows retreating, the station returning to its normal state. Alex stood alone, his heart heavy with the weight of what had just happened. He had survived, but the victory felt hollow. As he turned to look at the departure board, the numbers jumbled back to life, the hum of the station returning. With one last glance at the empty space where Jordan had been, Alex walked toward the platform. The train was pulling in, its headlights piercing through the station's gloom. Alex boarded the train, his body moving automatically, but his mind still trapped in the remnants of the battle. As the train doors closed behind him, Alex couldn't help but feel a shift in the world around him. Subtle, but undeniable. He had won. But at what cost?